Hello, welcome to Bible study time and welcome to my quiet time Bible study. My Hebrew name is Ahava, which is one of the many ways you can say love in Hebrew. And this is the time where I invite you to come and join me in the comfort of my prayer room so we can discuss different topics to do with the Most High Creator God of the universe. And this week we are going to be continuing to read through our series from the complete 54 book Apocrypha, the book of Jasher. I have received some of your messages regarding other topics, and it is birthday season for myself and my partner. So once birthday season wraps up, I will try my best to see if I can actually upload 2 videos during this read along series, because 2 videos a week, because it's going to be quite long, because this is a very long book. And so that's what I plan on doing, probably in March, I would say. I'll try my best. Also, when it comes to what I'm reading, answering the question that some of you guys have been asking, what is on my reading list currently, I haven't really had a lot of time to read anything much outside of the book of Jasher and of course the Holy Bible. But I have been going through this little booklet here that's called Self-Care. I think I just picked it up in the sales section of Chapters Indigo here in Toronto, and it's a little book, and it has 150 little ways to make a big change. And so they aren't in any particular order or anything. So I've been kind of reading this outside of my Bible. For example, one little blurb would be, self-care is an attitude that says, I am responsible for myself. So that's really all that I've kind of added to my reading list currently from time to time. I have started this book here, Marcus Aurelius Meditations, but I haven't really picked it up for a couple months because honestly it's not really my cup of tea, and I'm reading it for research purposes, but it's really been difficult for me to get through it. But I do want to read the source of the research that I'm gathering about Stoicism, so I'm also trying my best to get through this one, but I haven't picked it up for a couple months. And really that's really all that I've been reading. Okay, outside of the book of Jasher. So speaking of the book of Jasher, last week I believe we left off in chapter number 20. Yes, we did. And so this week we are going to continue reading in chapter 21. For those of you, the few of you have mentioned you have this particular book, I will be on page 349, beginning in verse number 1 of chapter 21, and the sun is going down here. And it reads, "And it was at that time, at the end of the year and 4 months of Abraham's dwelling in the land of the Philistines in Gerar, that God visited Sarah, and the Lord remembered her, and she conceived and bore a son to Abraham. And Abraham called the name of the son which was born to him, which Sarah bore to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac at 8 days old, as God had commanded Abraham to do, to his seed after him. And Abraham was 100 and Sarah 90 years old when Isaac was born to them. And the child grew up, and he was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. And Shem and Eber and all the great people of the land, and Abimelech, king of the Philistines, and the servants, and Phicol, the captain of his host, came to eat and drink and rejoice at the feast which Abraham made on the day of his son Isaac's being weaned. Also Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nabor his brother, came from Haran, they and all belonging to them, for they greatly rejoiced on hearing that a son had been born to Sarah. And they came to Abraham, and they ate and drank at the feast which Abraham made on the day of Isaac's being weaned. And Terah and Nahor rejoiced with Abraham, and they remained with him many days in the land of the Philistines. At that time, Serug, the son of Reu, died in the first year of the birth of Isaac, son of Abraham. And all the days of Serug were 239 years, and he died. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, had grown up in those days. He was 14 years old when Sarah bore Isaac to Abraham. And God was with Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and he grew up, and he learned to use the bow and became as an archer. And when Isaac was 5 years old, he was sitting with Ishmael at the door of the tent, and Ishmael came to Isaac and seated himself opposite to him. And he took the bow and drew it, and put the arrow in it, and intended to slay Isaac. And Sarah saw the act which Ishmael desired to do to her son Isaac, and it grieved her exceedingly on account of her son. And she sent for Abraham and said to him, "Cast out this bondswoman and her son, for her son will not be heir with my son." For thus he sought to do to him this day. And Abraham listened to the voice of Sarah, and he rose up early in the morning, and he took 12 loaves and a bottle of water, which he gave to Hagar, and sent her away with her son. And Hagar went with her son to the wilderness, and they dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, with the inhabitants of the wilderness. And Ishmael was an archer, and he dwelt in the wilderness a long time. And afterward he and his mother went to the land of Egypt, and they dwelt there. And Hagar took a wife for her son from Egypt, and her name was Meribah. And the wife of Ishmael conceived and bore 4 sons and 2 daughters. And afterward Ishmael and his mother and his wife and children went and returned to the wilderness. And they made there themselves dwellings, tents in the wilderness, in which they dwelt. And they continued to travel, and then to rest monthly and yearly. And God gave Ishmael flocks and herds and tents on account of his father Abraham, and the man increased in cattle. And Ishmael dwelt in deserts and tents, traveling and resting for a long time, as he did not see the face of his father. And some time after, Abraham said to his wife Sarah, "I will go and see my son Ishmael, for I have a desire to see him, for I have not seen him for a long time." And Abraham rode on one of the camels to the wilderness to seek his son Ishmael, for he heard that he was dwelling in a tent in the wilderness with all belonging to him. And Abraham went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and he found the wife of Ishmael sitting in the tent with her children, and her husband Ishmael and his mother were not with them. And Abraham asked the wife of Ishmael, saying, Where is Ishmael? Where is Ishmael? Where has Ishmael gone? And she said, He has gone to the field to hunt. And Abraham was still mounted on the camel, for he would not get off to the ground, as he had sworn to his wife Sarah that he would not get off from the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, My daughter, give me a little water that I may drink, for I am fatigued from the journey. And Ishmael's wife answered and said to Abraham, We have neither water nor bread. And she continued sitting in the tent and did not notice Abraham, neither did she ask him who he was. But she was beating her children in the tent, and she was cursing them. And she also cursed her husband Ishmael and reproached him. And Abraham heard the words of Ishmael's wife to her children, and he was very angry and displeased. And Abraham called to the woman to come out to him from the tent. And the woman came and stood opposite to Abraham, for Abraham was still mounted on the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, "When your husband Ishmael returns home, say to him that a very old man from the land of the Philistines came here to seek you, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing you were not here, he spoke to me and said, 'When your husband Ishmael returns, tell him thus this man said, when you come home, put away this nail of the tent which you have placed here, and place another nail in its stead.' And Abraham finished his instructions to the woman, and he turned and went off on the camel homeward. And after that Ishmael came from the chase, he and his mother, and returned to the tent. And his wife spake these words to him, 'A very old man from the land of the Philistines came to seek you, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing you were not at home, he said to me, when your husband comes home, tell him thus says the old man, put away the nail of the tent which you have placed here, and place another nail in its stead.' And Ishmael heard the words of his wife, and he knew that it was his father, and that his wife did not honor him. And Ishmael understood his father's words, that he had spoken to his wife. And Ishmael listened to the voice of his father, and Ishmael cast off the woman, and she went away. And afterward Ishmael went to the land of Canaan, and he took another wife, and he brought her to his tent, to the place where he then dwelt. And at the end of 3 years, Abraham said, I will again go and see my son Ishmael, for I have not seen him for a long time. And he rode on his camel and went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and his wife came out of the tent, and she said, He is not here, my lord, for he has gone to hunt in the fields and to feed the camels. And the woman said to Abraham, Turn in, my lord, into the tent and eat a morsel of bread, for your soul must be wearied on account of the journey. And Abraham said to her, I will not stop, for I am in haste to continue on my journey. But give me a little water to drink, for I have thirst. And the woman hastened and ran into the tent, and she brought out water and bread to Abraham, which she placed before him, and she urged him to eat. And he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted, and he blessed his son Ishmael. And he finished his meal, and he blessed the Lord. And he said to Ishmael's wife, When Ishmael comes home, say these words to him, A very old man from the land of the Philistines came here and asked after you, and you were not here. And I brought him out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me, When your husband Ishmael comes home, say to him, The nail of the tent which you have is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. And Abraham finished commanding the woman, and he rode off to his home, to the land of the Philistines. And when Ishmael came to his tent, his wife went out to meet him with joy and a cheerful heart. And she said to him, An old man came here from the land of the Philistines, and thus was his appearance. And he asked after you, and you were not here. And I brought him out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me, When your husband Ishmael comes home, say to him, The nail of the tent which you have is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. And Ishmael knew that it was his father, and that his wife had honored him, and the Lord blessed Ishmael. Moving on to chapter number 22. And Ishmael then rose up and took his wife and his children and his cattle and all belonging to him. And he journeyed from there, and he went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham relayed to his son the transaction with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelt with Abraham many days in the land, and Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines a long time. And the days increased and reached 26 years. And after that, Abraham and his servants and all belonging to him went from the land of the Philistines and removed to a great distance. And they came near to Hebron, and they remained there. And the servants of Abraham dug wells of water, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. And the servants of Abimelech, king of the Philistines, heard the report that Abraham's servants had dug wells of the water in the borders of the land. And they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed them of the great well which they had dug. And Abimelech, king of the Philistines, heard of this affair, and he, with Phicol, the captain of the hosts, and 20 of his men came to Abraham, and Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants. And Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well, of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, As the Lord lives, who created the whole earth, I did not hear of the act which my servants did to your servants until this day. And Abraham took 7 ewe lambs and gave them to Abimelech, saying, Please take these from my hands, that it may be a testimony for me that I dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds in abundance. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well. Therefore he called that well Beersheba, for they both swore concerning it. Continuing on. And they both made a covenant in Beersheba, and Abimelech rose up with Phicol, the captain of his hosts, and all his men, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba, and he made 4 gates to it, facing the 4 sides of the earth, and he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he entered any gate which was in his road, and remained there, and ate and drank and satisfied himself until then, and then departed. For the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men that passed and repassed, who came daily to eat and drink in the house of Abraham. And any man who had hunger and came to Abraham's house, Abraham would give him bread, that he might eat and drink. and be satisfied. And anyone that came naked to his house, he would clothe with garments as he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and make known to him the Lord, who had created him in the earth. Abraham did this all his life, and Abraham and his children and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he pitched his tent as far as Hebron. And Abraham's brother Nahor, and continuing on, his father and all belonging to them dwelt in Haran. For they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And children were born to Nahor, which Milcah, the daughter of Haran and sister to Sarah, Abraham's wife, bore to him. And these are the names of those that were born to him: Uz, Buz, Kemuel, Kesed, please excuse my pronunciation, Chazdo, Pikdash, Todi, and continuing on. I'm not going to read through all of them because they are really difficult to pronounce. Okay, continuing on, I'm going to continue. And the children of Uz, the firstborn of Nahor, were Abi, Cherpha, Kadin, Milba, and their sister Deborah. Okay, I'm just going to move down through these names, and I will definitely put it into the description, the verses that I did skip over. And Teriel lived 25 years after he begat Zobah, and Terah died in that year. That is in the 35th year of the birth of Isaac, son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried in Haran. And Zebah, the son of Terah, lived 30 years, and he begat Aran, Achilles, and Merrick. And Aran, the son of Zolag, son of Terah, had 3 wives, and he begat 12 sons and 3 daughters. And the Lord gave riches and possessions and abundance of cattle and flocks and herds to Aran, the son of Zubah, and the man increased greatly. And Aran, the son of Zubah, and his brother and all his household journeyed from Haran, and they went to dwell where they should find a place for, continuing on, for their property was too great to remain in Haran, for they could not stop in Haran, for they could not step in Haran together with their brothers, the children of Nahor. And Aran, the son of Zubah, went with his brothers, and they found a valley at a distance toward the eastern country, and they dwelt there. And they also built a city there, and they called the name thereof Aram, after the name of the oldest brother, that is Aram Zubah, to this day. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was growing up in those days, and his father Abraham taught him the way of the Lord, to know the Lord, and the Lord was with him. And when Isaac was 37 years old, his brother Ishmael was going around with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when the Lord spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of the Lord which he spoke to my father, and I gave my soul to the Lord, and I did not transgress his word which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, Why do you boast to me about this, about a little bit of your flesh, which you took from your body, concerning which the Lord commanded you? As the Lord lives, the God of my father Abraham, if the Lord should say to my father, as the Lord lives, the God of my father Abraham, if the Lord should say to my father, now take your son Isaac and bring him up as an offering before me, I would not refrain, but I would joyfully accede to it. And the Lord heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of the Lord. And he thought to try Abraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of God came and placed themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with the sons of God before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said to Satan, what is your word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered the Lord and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve you and remember you when they require anything from you. And when you give them the thing which they require from you, they sit at their case and forsake you, and they no longer remember you. Have you seen Abraham, the son of Terah, who at first had no children, and he served you and erected altars to you wherever he came, and he brought up an offering on them, and he proclaimed your name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken you. He has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, and he has forgotten the Lord. For amidst all that he has done, he brought you no offering, neither burnt offering nor peace offerings, neither ox, lamb, nor goat, of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned, even from the time of his son's birth until now. Being 37 years old, he built no altar before you, nor brought any offering to you, for he, continuing on, sorry, the light is really bad, for he saw that you gave what he requested before you, and therefore he forsook you. And the Lord said to Satan, have you thus considered my servant Abraham? For there is none like him on earth, a perfect and upright man before me, one that fears God and avoids evil. As I live, were I to say to him, bring up your son Isaac before me, he would not withhold him from me. Much more, if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flock or herds. And Satan answered the Lord and said, then speak to Abraham now as you have said, and you will see whether he will not transgress and cast aside your words this day. This brings me to the end of chapter 23, a little bit of technical issues with the light, etc., but that's okay. And I know it's a little bit tedious, but with these ancient books, sometimes they're long. So I promise you guys, I am going to try within the next month or so, closer to the early spring, to upload 2 videos a week. One will be continuing with the Jasher read along, and the other one will just be a normal Bible study like I usually do. And I'm so grateful to the Most High Creator God for all of his wonderful blessings that he has given to me. And before I say goodbye, I want to remind you that the Most High Creator God of the universe, Yahweh, loves all of his children.